Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Greg in Your Ear, an exciting series where I intend to make things awkward for the both of us by speaking quietly as close to the mic as possible. What has prompted this series is Copypastas, who works on our Kit's orphanage comic, has had a lot of work going on, so she's not going to be able to release enough Kit to keep things going every week like we have been doing. We built up a bit of a backlog, but Copy actually works in television, so sometimes she just gets a lot on her plate and she can't keep up with the workload of a private comic. To be honest, we don't make a lot of money, so she and I actually, neither of us are making a real living on this web stuff at the moment. The Patreon isn't where it needs to be, especially not for two of us. So I'm doing this to fill a bit of space and also to see if I can get something going with a bit of a vocal cadence. This is sort of like a vocal jazz is the idea, where I'm gonna try and sort of smooth talk you through playing a video game or just whatever the heck it is I feel like. Everything is stream of consciousness, and it should go over great, except for two problems. One is that I have a very small child, and you never know when he's going to wake up, and I'll have to restart everything. And the other is we've got a little dachshund who likes to be destructive and cause trouble from time to time or bark at things, so occasionally I'm just going to have to completely scrap everything I've done and start over from scratch. So anyway, the game we're playing here is called M.A.S.S Builder, and you can see we've named ourselves the demo private military contractor. They have this lady character who I find absolutely grotesque. They've got these giant boobs on her, and that's not really the problem. That's not grotesque. Giant boobs are fine, if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not going to judge. My problem with it is just that everything about the way that they've put those boobs on her is absolutely wrong. For one thing, they've got her boobs in these individual socks. You would need to specially tailor your clothing to fit that, and I know most women won't go through the trouble because it looks gaudy and unattractive. Most men don't actually go for it, or it sends the wrong kind of message. But if you were to do that, then that outfit would provide support for your chest, and they wouldn't sag and heave quite so much as they do. And the other thing is that your chest is not a flat board, it is actually a multiplanar surface. You have like 3 surfaces on the front of your chest, so if you don't have support and your breasts were going to sag a great deal, then they would fall to either side of your chest and they would separate a lot more than they do in this character design. So the breasts kind of defy physics. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And not only that, but it reminds me a lot of the Stellaris portraits, where you have all these sort of gelatinous aliens with these tentacle protrusions that sort of quiver and shake and whatnot while you're interacting with them so that they don't get too boring. So in a lot of ways, I just find her grotesque and alien and horrible. So yes, but of course she's not why we're playing the game. The main reason why we're playing this game is for the robots. That's what M.A.S.S Builder is actually about. This game has been described by some as something like an Armored Core light, although many people haven't really played Armored Core. The idea is that most of your choices on this robot are functionally cosmetic in a lot of ways. There are some differences to the way things behave depending on what you choose, but they're not significant enough to really belabor over it, and the game doesn't give you enough information to know what it is you're choosing. So you can go through and it says that these things weigh 0.2 tons or 0.3 tons or what have you, and you can adjust that up or down. And it has some impact on your robot's performance, but what impact it has, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm sure I'm becoming more or less armored or faster or slower, and if I really wanted, I could just choose the lightest parts on everything. That's what I'm going to be doing for the next however long this goes on. I don't actually know. I recorded this ahead of time. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is because I have developed a sort of syndrome where if I play a video game and then don't record it and turn it into work, I feel guilty. I feel like I'm wasting an opportunity. I could be doing something fun for my viewers, and here I am just doing something fun for myself. So this ridiculous and uncomfortable series is a fun opportunity for me to turn work into fun and vice versa, and then I can play this game and justify it in my head as a business endeavor, even though, to be honest, I just wanted to play it because I like giant robots. So you're going to get to watch me play. This is I've actually had a crack at this game a little earlier on and found some of the little hitches. They have broken English. So one of the more hilarious things I discovered is that there is a section and it says equip, press spacebar. And when you press that, it switches to unequip, press spacebar. And what that means is that you have unequipped your item. You would think that that button unequips things, but no, it's actually broken English. They mean to say unequipped Like past tense, this item is unequipped. Press the spacebar to equip. But you wouldn't know that until you go into the first mission without any weapons because you've unequipped them all. So, fun stuff, fun stuff. Yeah. Anyway, there's not a lot to say about that, and so since this is a stream of consciousness thing, I'll just kind of go in, stuff with life and whatnot. We've had an awful lot going on since the last time I ever did a personal time with Greg. Claudia and I are thinking about having our next child and how exactly we want to go about that. We've had to look into sort of moving up in our living situation. We've been renters for me for all of my adult life, and Claudia ever since she got out of high school. She's a bit younger than I am, but not by very much, so she's been a renter all of her life as well. And one of the things that we discovered when looking into renting more space for more children is that it turns out that rent is a bit of a scam. Everyone says this, but you don't really realize it until you start wondering about whether or not you should buy a house or rent a place. And in most cases, if you're looking for an actual house, it turns out you should just buy it and pay the mortgage, because the mortgage is cheaper than the rent in some cases. In our case, it turns out that the mortgage is going to be about the same as the rent at the place that we're currently at, and yet we'll have more space. And although we won't technically own the place, the bank will, we'll still be building equity, and when we decide to move on, we can take some of that equity that we've gathered and put it towards another house and put down a larger down payment and wind up paying less on the mortgage for the second place. This is how you move up from your starter home and on over. And in our younger years, the both of us never really believed that we would be homeowners. It's just not something that really clicked for us as a necessity, but now that we're going through it, we realize that it's for the best that we do it. In fact, it's very logical that many people in America go on to own their own homes. A lot of people in Europe and whatnot, they live in more congested cities, and that is disgustingly impractical to purchase your own home. But here in the U.S., we have a lot of homes, a lot of open space. As they say, Texas takes up most of Europe, so if you live in the U.S., you've got plenty of space to live on. Not all of it's great. Some of it's bullet plain, and then you drown in a bad storm. But I don't believe that we're moving into such a place. It's a reasonable area, a decent place, good schools, good elementary school. We're moving in a little too early to be worried about the elementary school, but we hope that by the time our son is old enough to go to school, he will be in a good situation, he'll be in a good school. So, the buyers are frustrating us a little bit right now. What happened with them, it appears, is that they moved into this place and started to do a lot of do-it-yourself kind of repairs. We like the house in its general situation, but we don't like any of the do-it-yourself work that they've done in the house. So we're probably going to tear up the things that they've already done and hire someone competent to redo them. But a frustration we run into is that we've gone through and we figured out what the house needs to have done, and many of the things that need to be looked at that are crucial are electrical things, safety deals, setting up a situation so that electrical sockets by the sink don't kill us. And we've put this on our resolution notice, and the sellers of the house have declared that they could save a lot of money if we would just let them fix these electrical problems on their own. And I don't believe these people are qualified electricians, they just know that they could save money if they did it. And while that is an amazing offer that they're putting forward, willing to do that for us, I'm concerned that because they're moving along and it's not their house that will be burning down, that we would really rather have a professional look at it. Now, to bring your attention back to this video game, which you may or may not be watching in the first place, this game gives you a lot of control over the colors and the shapes and the size of your robots. Like I say, it's mostly cosmetic, it doesn't particularly matter, but for many people this is a lot of the fun of the game. It's just painting, but without the effort of learning how to really paint. But one thing that comes up is sort of a color theory. Blue is can be a sort of lovely complementary color to red. It depends on where you are with the red. But when you're just choosing from presets, it's a little bit difficult to match things up. Initially, when I set this up, I went for the blue and decided to change everything else before I revisited that. But I felt like the blue actually clashed. I didn't get a good saturation on it, or whatever the case. I can't actually see where they're located across from the color wheel. Anyway, just something to think about. The colors are most of the game, so what you're witnessing me doing here is trying to build a bot that looks good, and if you think that it looks good at the end of all this, then congratulations for me, I've won the game. The rest of the game is not too terribly exciting. It's not awful. I don't hate it, but what can I say? There's just a certain element of it's an independent studio, and you can definitely tell. But for an independent studio, they've done all right. So yes. Anyway, regarding the house again, there's quite a few things that little things that need to be looked at in the house. But these people, they moved in less than a year ago, and then it looks like maybe they received a new job or got relocated or something happened, and so now they have to leave the place right away, and we think that either they're terribly strapped for cash and can't afford to pay for the repairs that we've requested, or they're trying their best to break even on their investment, which is really kind of impossible on a house. If you buy a house, then you have to pay your realtor, and there's closing costs from the bank and everything, and expecting to break even is very impractical. So these people, if they break even, they've taken us for a ride somewhat, but they're doing their best to kind of get away from this without spending too much money. You cannot blame them, but it is still frustrating to put an offer on a house with so much money on the table and then have them say, yes, we'll just fix the electrical on our own. That's a good idea, is it not? Because in my opinion, it's a terrible idea, and it makes me angry that they even suggest it. So we'll see if we get another offer back. I went back and I told them, listen, if you're going to dick around, then let's just have you pay some more of our closing costs and use the money we save to hire contractors on our own and make it so the house doesn't have a horrific, dangerous situation. Oh, another thing I should mention is while this runs on, you might notice the occasional hitch in the audio. Things might drop out, and you may not expect that to happen, but there's something going on. I'm not sure if it's my drivers or if it's the hardware itself. But not everything is totally in sync, and you occasionally get these glitches. I get this while I'm doing recordings for virtually anything. When I'm doing small snippets of recordings, it's not as big of a deal. You normally do a couple of different takes of any given line, and you pick the ones that you like the most, that you feel were the most expressive, and you go with those. So if you have a little glitch in one of the lines, it's okay. You just use another one. You don't have to do a retake. But because this is just a continuous stream of consciousness, you will occasionally hear those little glitches, and there's nothing I could do. I would have to go back and retake everything, and then I would get more glitches. There's no solving it. So I apologize for that. It probably ruins the flow a little bit. So yes, here we're looking at it. You can do everything. You can customize everything in this game, right down from your weapons to whatever, and there are some minor differences between these types of weapons. I personally like the idea of a giant spear. I think the longer your weapon, the better. You would have to be a fool to go with a short weapon, especially when you are wielding around several hundred tons of weight. You want to be as far away from everything as you can be, and just swing that stuff with the greatest moment of inertia as you can muster. You can see here I'm committed to this paint scheme of purple and red. I'm not entirely sure if these are exactly the colors that I want, but they're close enough, and it is just a demo, and realistically it doesn't matter. I'm the only one who will see it. They promise a multiplayer down the line. I'm not currently paying for anything, but maybe I will at some point. The multiplayer is one of the things that would compel me to actually care about how my robot looks, because when I show up, everyone will see me. I would have to make sure that I'm building a nice competitive robot while still looking good, because if you don't look good, then you're losing points. I really kind of like that vibrating stick. That one cracks me up. That's like a mechanical dildo type thing right there. Just slowly penetrate the enemy with repeated poking. What will they do about that? Nothing. They're helpless. So they didn't come prepared. No one can. So yes, I just got a katana strapped on the end of this stick. That's gonna be just a blast. And who could argue with that? Certainly not a good mech pilot. So, yes, other things that are going on. I mentioned the dog earlier as being a bit of a distraction. She was in the room with me previously. Claudia and I, we bought a new guest bed, because her parents like to stay over. They live a bit of a ways away, so it's kind of an inconvenience for them to come out. and we have a guest bed specifically for them so they can sleep on it. This is brand new. We had an old one, and the dog used to be allowed to sit up on this bed, and whenever the covers were off the bed, the dog would get frustrated because it was less comfortable, and she would try to dig the bed and make it more comfortable. So this bed, it was very old. We weren't terribly concerned about the survivability of it. We sort of just allowed her to dig the bed, and she would tear it up all to shreds. And we knew that we were going to throw it away soon anyway, so we just allowed it. And what wound up happening here is that while I was recording, she decided that she wasn't comfortable. She hopped up on the bed and then started to tear it apart. This is a brand new bed, so I tried to swat her off. And she's grown accustomed to screaming whenever anything happens to her ever since we had the baby, because she developed a great deal of anxiety when we had our child. She's a little dachshund, so they're a nervous breed in the first place. But she would follow us around and stand as close underfoot as she could get away with. It was actually quite obnoxious, because you would occasionally trip over her, because she would make an effort to be underneath you, to always be right there. It used to be that we looked after her, we were careful, because she was all we were paying attention to. But when you're holding a baby, and the baby is holding up a lot of your attention, you can't look out for a little dog that's just following you around for the sake of anxiety. So she's been stepped on a lot since the birth of our child. She's grown and more nervous than ever, probably as a result of being stepped on so often. So a little shove, a little swat made her panic. And let me tell you, nothing is worse than straining to listen to the sound of my beautiful voice and then suddenly hearing a dog shriek because I pushed her away from the bed. She let me know she's there, and she let you guys know as well, so I ditched that whole recording, and here we are back with this. So I'll go ahead and I'll explain. There's in this game you get 4 or 5 different weapons. I'm not exactly clear. I think the 5th weapon is some sort of orbiting laser thing, which you can toggle on and off. I don't know how to toggle it on and off, so I just unequip the thing. I don't want to deal with it. Automatic weaponry is lame. There's also missile pods, which I completely forget that I have throughout the course of this video. You have to press a special button to activate them, and you can't just switch to them normally, so they didn't do me any good in this playthrough. But you have a melee weapon, which is your most important weapon, because of course it is. It's a mech game, I believe, developed by the Japanese, and they, of course, fold all their weapons thousands of times, glorious nip and steel. So you can't, of course, get guns stronger than their swords. Their amazing pig iron is just beyond anyone's ability to compare with. So the melee weapons are the most important weapons. You'll use them more than anything. The second gun is some sort of like solid projectile, but I'm not exactly sure how that works, because once you fire all the ammo slowly regenerates, which means that you must be creating M.A.S.S from nothing. I'm not sure how I'm expected to believe that this works, or if it's actually supposed to be an energy weapon, but it's fires like as it says, a bullet launcher, which I think is a cute way of saying gun. Yes, it's a bullet launcher. It launches bullets at high velocity. Oh, no, never mind. That was the rocket launcher. They don't know what bullets are, I guess. Like I say, the translation is not amazing. I don't believe the story is terribly amazing either. I sort of glossed through it. One of the big things that happened is as soon as I saw this lady with her giant boobs, I dismissed the seriousness of the game. So whatever story they've written in, it is impossible for me to take seriously. Maybe one of you who wants to try this game out for yourself can take the story seriously and tell me that I am being unfair. But I am honestly not concerned about it. Armored Core is not particularly well known for its story. The general idea of that series was always that corporations are bad and you should be shooting people because you need money. At the end of the day, money is good, corporations are bad, yet corporations have all the money. It is the eternal struggle of man, and I enjoy that. You may be aware I applied that to the MechWarrior series. So yes. At any rate, this is actually where I'm getting tired of my own voice, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just wrap this up here, and that's how we're going to be doing this series. I will talk at you in this bizarre manner until I get sick of it, and then I'm going to stop. So thank you for joining me today, everybody. This is a stopping place simply because I want to stop, I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope that I see you again for the next of these series, and if not this, then for Radio Skyline, or just check out our comics. Also, if you would like to support us on Patreon, it would be a big help. Like I say, we're not really earning enough to survive on these days, and it would be great if we could get up there and actually be pulling in more money again. I know that you all have your own lives to live and everything like that, so sometimes you guys come and sometimes you go. But if you can find it in your hearts to donate a little bit, it would be much appreciated. So, again, you guys have a wonderful day. I hope that you have a great day, and that's all I got. I'll talk to you again.